Here in the final weeks of the course, we'll be revising both our first and second drafts into a new third version. To revise means to re-envision, to re-see the whole process. And so here at week 13, you should have a vastly different understanding of your topic than you did back in week 5 or 6 when we were beginning the research process. And so I think revision works best if we spend time first thinking before we ever go back and reread our essays. So think about all the information that you've now gathered. Think about what is the most important message you need to persuade your audience of, knowing everything that you now know. As you plan your revision process for this week, you want to think about taking it in steps. You might first work on different sections of the essay and then the whole in week 14 or week 15. So first, check the focus of the paper. Again, do you have a clearly defined now argument thesis in which you make a claim and then give a reason or reasons for that claim? Does the paper stay on track the entire time, or do you digress? If you digress, you want to think about what needs to be taken out of the essay. Think about the purpose of your writing. What is it, again, that you're trying to persuade us of, and have you engaged your audience enough to commit them to your argument? Examine the balance of your paper, and this means think about how you're using ethos, pathos, logos. Look at the different sections. Think about your counter argument. Do you give enough weight and information to persuade your audience? Often we will find that we weigh more heavily in one area than another, which unbalances the paper and therefore our argument. Check that you've kept your promises to your reader. Does your paper follow through on your claim and your reason? Do you support these? Is your tone and formality in keeping with the academic moment of the day? Meaning that is it formal, more formal than we use for speaking language, but not so formal that we think we're reading a law contract? Check the organization. Does your paper follow a pattern that makes sense? One of the things that you can do here is to do a reverse outline. And what a reverse outline does is you write the first sentence of every paragraph into outline form, and then you can examine the sections of your essay more effectively. You might be able to see where it's unbalanced or where you spend your time in digression. One of the things that we often find in revising is that we have information that we have left out or questions that we have not answered that we need to do further research on. This is the time to recognize that and take care of it. So you want to think about what secondary research do you still need to do? What questions do you need to answer? Have you included the best primary research that you can? Have you done interviews, surveys, case studies, site surveys? Are there web pages that need to be evaluated, or do you need to include behavior logs? Make sure that you have vetted all of your sources and cited them correctly. Remember that mistakes in citation are ethos mistakes, and these can undermine your entire argument. Check your conclusion, which can be in a longer paper longer than one paragraph. What you might want to think about is, are you returning to pathos and your audience, and are you directing them in how to utilize the information that you've given them? A few tips for good and effective revision. I like to work from a hard copy as it's easier on the eyes. Also, problems that seem invisible on the screen can turn up more easily in paper. One of the things that you can also do is you can cut your sections apart and move them around, literally. Cut and paste in Word come from old editing in which we used to actually have to cut paper apart and move it around. So this can be an editing technique that can help you. Have someone or the computer read the paper out loud to you while you are not looking at the paper. One of the problems writers have is that we have all the information in our head and we will often fill in blanks on the paper because we don't see them. And so if we break the mind-eye connection and listen, we can hear where we've made mistakes. Don't try to tackle everything all at once. Again, work in sections. Think about the different parts of your essay and take each part individually before you finally do a complete revision. Ask a lot of questions and don't be afraid to answer them honestly to yourself. Hopefully, as you look back on your first draft, you will be dissatisfied with it because you now know so much more and you are more effective at persuasion. And so think about opposing viewpoints very deliberately. Think about, again, how persuasive your words are on your audience.